Welcome to the Real Estate Update Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Centopani, and joining me today is Afifa Saburi of Veterans United. Afifa, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Now, you're a capital markets analyst for Veterans United. What does that entail?
So I think the simplest way to describe it is my job is essentially risk management. When a loan comes into our pipeline, there's a value assigned to that loan, and all we're doing is protecting the value of that loan from the time it locks through the time we either retain that loan or we sell it to another aggregator.
That is the secondary market for mortgages.
That is the secondary market. That's where all I do, that's where all of that happens.
Gotcha. So, if mortgages are essentially IOUs plus interest for buying a house, buying those mortgage-backed securities, does that just mean paying a flat price for them now in order to reap the profits over the lifetime of those loans?
So I think the simplest way maybe to start it is like to really understand the secondary market. It helps to define what the primary market is because that's a lot simpler. And essentially, the primary market is the borrower looking to buy a home. They need a mortgage, so they come to a lender, and the lender's like, here's my rate sheet, and here's the rate you are eligible for. And the thing that connects that whole process to the secondary market is that rate sheet. And when we go to the secondary market piece of it, which a lot of that is what's driving rate sheets today, especially due to the volatility, is the cost of each rate, right? So there's different rates on the rate sheet, and what the borrower would be eligible for depends a lot on the cost of that rate. The benchmark is essentially the par rate, the rate that would cost you zero. And then you go below that rate, you would have to pay to buy down your rate. And then you could go above premium, which essentially you get a credit for locking in that rate. And all of that is determined by supply and demand in the secondary market. There are buyers for mortgage-backed securities, and the MBS market has historically been a very liquid market. We did see some illiquidity in that market, especially when COVID hit and everybody panicked and they were like, we don't know what's going on. A lot of that has improved by now. There were some hiccups, but that liquidity, the buying and selling of mortgage bonds, is essentially what determines the cost of that rate.
Fairness, nobody knew what was going on back then. So,
Nope,
that's
we're all just figuring it out.
what's been happening in the bond market recently, and how is that impacting mortgage rates?
Yeah, so recently it's actually quite interesting because coming into the year, it started to feel like everyone kind of adapted to this new norm. And the market was actually doing a very good job in terms of resetting itself and getting adjusted to this new shift of rates. You could see that very clearly in the volatility, the MOVE index, for example, that tracks the volatility in the bond market. It was very stable. Everything looked very stable, very nice. So it was kind of a moment of relief for everyone in the industry. Like, okay, everything is going, the machine is working. And then the first positive for mortgage rates we saw in the sense that mortgage rates actually saw a really brief but meaningful improvement was when it was announced that Fannie and Freddie could buy $200 billion of mortgage-backed securities. That again takes us back to the supply demand side of mortgage bonds and how they improve pricing for a lender's rate sheet. So this was a new buyer that had exited the market ever since the GFC. So them stepping back in and buying these bonds would be a positive for mortgage rates. So it was welcome news across the board. So again, had a steady market, welcome news for rates, good news, good rates, and then comes along probably the first geopolitical risk that the markets have priced in for a long time. And the reason why the Iran conflict, the reason why this mattered for mortgages so much is because it's close relation to oil prices. Because historically, when oil prices rise, it essentially translates to higher inflation. And I'm pretty sure every single person is tired of hearing the word inflation because it's been in the news for so long. So that pops back up in the news. And now the worry is, oh, if we have inflation, is the Federal Reserve going to raise rates now? Because that's one of their mandates. And that's how the market viewed it at first. And I mean, that happened all the way through, I believe, end of last week. The market was like, okay, we're going to have to price in this inflation, which means higher federal funds rate, which means higher interest rates. And that, of course, translates to higher rates for consumers. So that was a bit of a shock for mortgage rates, and we saw that reflected. Treasury yields, the 10-year is something that mortgage rates kind of have a correlation with. They never follow one to one, but there is that historical relationship there. 10-year yields did rise, but mortgage spreads, which determine cost and then that feeds into mortgage rates, that actually got worse than treasuries did. So even though there is a correlation, mortgage rates took a harder hit from this inflation risk reprice than treasury yields did. So that, of course, makes mortgage rates go higher, which is also something we've seen. And then up until last week, that was the sentiment. Today, it's a different sentiment because the market is saying, you know what? Yes, oil prices cause inflation, but they could also cause a slowdown to the economy, especially because we have seen some labor market data. The last few reports have shown that the labor market is cooling, and the latest one actually showed that it was pulling back. So now the market's like, yes, there will be some inflation from oil, but growth is also important. So if the economy is slowing down, then the Fed is not going to hike. So the 50% chance of a hike that the market was pricing in last week is no longer the case this week, and that is resulting in better mortgage rates because that secondary market has completely repriced risk going from inflationary to a hit to a growing economy. And historically, any sort of fear of a slowdown of an economy or recession leads to lower mortgage rates, which is what we're seeing today.
I know a lot of people are having a tough time right now with the job market and just inflation, wreaking havoc and all that. You mentioned how it's not a one-to-one correlation with bond trading and treasury yields influencing mortgage rates. So is there a lag or does it sometimes not even follow at all?
There have been cases where they don't follow at all, and that takes us back to how the market prices risk for different securities. Both treasuries and mortgage bonds fall under fixed income, and there are different types of buyers for treasuries and mortgage bonds. Mortgage bonds carry an extra layer of risk that's associated with prepayment and credit risk, default risk. Treasury bonds don't have that because they're essentially guaranteed by the government. So every type of bond has a spread attached to it, and that spread measures what the risk associated with that bond is. So when we talk about treasury yields moving up or down and whether or not mortgage rates follow, it all depends on how the investors in the secondary market are evaluating that bond. The spread we look at, the current coupon, which essentially just means that the mortgage rate in the market that comes at zero cost. So whatever the rate is closest to par. We look at the spread between that and the 10-year. That spread is a little bit different from the traditional 10 to 30 year. And that specific spread is where all of the risk gets priced in because what it includes in it is how much more an investor of a mortgage bond security will be demanding additional to what they would pay for a US Treasury bond. So as they think risk is higher, the cost of that mortgage bond goes higher, and then that translates to a higher rate on the rate sheet for a borrower.
So when investors retreat into those more safe investments, those get higher and they bring up the mortgage rates as well.
Yes, so mortgage rates, they become more risky as rates become volatile because investors are not sure if in the near future, if they expect that their investment to completely pay off, or will it last longer because the rates are stable?
Now, you'd mentioned earlier how Fannie and Freddie bought mortgage-backed securities in January, and that helped bring rates down. Do you think that'll help bring them down again? And how long does that usually take to make an impact?
I think the impact really depends on the magnitude of buying. So yes, they were asked to buy 200 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities. If they were to do it all at once, yes, we would see an immediate big reaction, a rate rally, mortgage rates would improve. But it's likely that they will spread that out. There haven't been any details on how long it would take them to buy 200 billion worth of securities, I think it depends on many different things, but it seems that we've seen that improvement and that's past and done. Now, if they were to pick up how much they're buying, we could see some improvement. I don't want to get too technical about it, but it also depends on whether or not the agencies actually hedge those bonds. If they don't hedge those bonds, it would help mortgage rates. But if they're hedging those bonds, then it kind of offsets the benefit of buying.
Now, since dropping below 6% at the end of February, the average 30-year fixed rate grew 40 basis points over the last 4 weeks, according to Freddie Mac. Now, mortgage rates are notoriously volatile, but that's a lot of growth in a short amount of time. Is there a reason, say hypothetically, we can't have a set mortgage rate? What would happen if the 30-year fixed rate was permanently fixed, say at 5%?
That goes back to how the secondary market would perceive that. So the reason we have all these different rates is because they each come with a different cost depending on each borrower's characteristics, right? It could be the FICO score that impacts what rate you land on, your loan amount, and your DTI, LTV, all these different factors. If we were to fix the mortgage rate at 5%, I think what would happen is there would be a benchmark. This is the characteristic of a borrower that gets a 5% rate at zero cost. And then, depending on where you fall above or below that benchmark, you would either pay more to obtain that rate or you would get a credit to obtain that rate. So it would be kind of a similar concept, except it might price out a lot more people than the current layout of different rates is doing.
Afifa, what is captivating your attention most in the housing market right now?
I want to say the last 3 weeks have been quite interesting because we saw such different scenarios happen so quickly. Just watching how the market reprices risk and what it considers a risk, going from thinking we're in an inflationary environment to, oh, we're actually in a recessionary environment in a week span is very interesting. And then honestly, just watching how resilient the mortgage market has been, considering all that's getting thrown at it. I always find that fascinating. I think volatility comes with a lot of up and down, but then a lot of times where you started and where you ended is about the same. So seeing all the reaction in between is always interesting.
It is funny how things come full circle. Well, Afifa, thank you so much for lending us your insights. I certainly learned a lot today, and knowledge is power after all, especially in the housing market. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. This is a pleasure.
Well, this is the Real Estate Update Podcast, and I hope to see you again next time.